Hello, everyone. Uh, we are so excited to have you all here with us today. Just a quick heads up before we start today's session. Today's session might make you look at your teams, your surveys, and maybe even your Slack or MS Teams messages a little bit differently. Because here's the thing, right? Disengagement doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's in the little things that people stop doing. And by the time it shows up in your metrics, the damage is already done. That's why we are here today to help you spot the signs early, act faster, and turn those silent struggles into real momentum. Now, speaking of momentum, we have got two amazing speakers with us here today who know exactly how to turn people's challenges into people's successes. First up, we have Saniya Mirza. She's a product manager at ThriveSparrow. She mainly focuses on the engage module. She's worked hand in hand with many organizations, studied engagement patterns inside out, and knows exactly what it takes to build a thriving culture, way beyond surveys and surface level perks. And joining her is Dahlia Sutrisno, a brilliant leadership coach who's helped teams and leaders turn disengagement around before it snowballs into bigger problems. She's all about making real practical change happen, and she's bringing tons of insights for us here today. All right, enough from me. Sanya, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Dahlia. Hi. So I know we have an audience from across various time zones, so I'm just going to start off with wishing you all a really good day. Welcome to the Disengagement Trap. Here we will be discussing why engagement is important, how you can identify the impact of disengagement on your company, on its outcomes, as well as its business profitability, and what we can do to fix that. So before we actually jump into the main topic of the session, what do you think a disengaged employee looks like? I'd like to open that question up for the audience and just for us as well. What do you think, Tasneem?
All right, let me think. Maybe a disengaged employee would just give out thumbs up instead of actually voicing out their opinions and zoning out in meetings or worst case, falling asleep.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Let's take a look at what the audience says for this, right? Okay. So before we actually jump right into this topic,
So let me share the results.
thumbs up seems to be winning the race here. I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of messages like this happen internally within our organizations as well. There would be a really long paragraph and then somebody would send a thumbs up.
you're right.
Although this does look like what a disengaged employee may appear to be, it's not the entire crux of the matter. So let's just go dive right into it and understand what engagement really is. Give me a second until I share my screen, and I hope this is visible to everyone now. Yeah, thumbs up if you can see it. Great. So, what exactly is engagement? A lot of times we see this really common misconception amongst people that employee satisfaction itself is employee engagement, but that's not really true. It's just a subset of employee engagement. Employee satisfaction is a very reactive measure. You give them resources, you give them feedback, and they will probably be satisfied with it. But engagement is not something reactive. It's quite proactive. Instead, it's an entire system on its own. It's what really drives employees to go above and beyond to reach their own strategic goals and to contribute towards the company. So, how do we go about explaining engagement? Think of your company like a football team, right? Do you guys follow football? Do you ever watch any of these players and think, ha, I could easily make that goal if I didn't have that one injury when I was, 15 years old? Now, I know we've all had that thought at some point, but I think we're severely underestimating just how much effort goes on behind the scenes for any team player to actually achieve a goal, right? So, for any football player, for example, you need to maintain their nutrition consistently. They need to maintain their diet consistently. They need to be practicing the sport on a daily basis. They need to have above and beyond all the motivation to do everything consistently, right? So how do you go about maintaining that? Let's take even Messi, for example. right? He's supposed to be the biggest player and the huge contributor towards Argentina team's success. But do you think that Messi could go about and excel to that level if Argentina's team and management was not backing him with the right resources, the right support, and the right motivation and drive to go forward and meet his goals, right? Pun intended. That is the real question. So, incidentally, like I've mentioned, a company or an organization is also exactly like a football team. And just like in a football team, the coaches are the biggest driving factors behind the team's success. Similarly, the HR and business leaders are also the driving factors behind the team's success. They, incidentally, they guide the game, they guide the team players, they nurture their individual strengths, and they set a common strategy towards which all the players are working, right? And how do they go about doing that? How do coaches go about doing that? It starts with, first and foremost, aligning the entire team to a common goal, right? So, in case of a football team, the coach might be trying to push the agenda of, aim for the World Cup. And that's exactly how, even within a organization, the leadership team has to set the strategy. So, say for example, inside an organization, you're aiming for a strategic goal, you're launching a product, and you're hoping to meet a $50 million market within the first year of its launch. How many teams are actually going to work on that? You have the product team, the marketing team, sales reps, customer success, they're all contributing towards it. And every single one of these individual employees from various teams have their own strengths, their own passions, their own dreams, and their own particular skill sets. Now, it is the leadership team's responsibility to identify exactly which employee can be used for what skill and to completely enhance that particular skill set, drive them to their highest potential, and use it for the betterment of not just the company, but also for their personal growth. And when employees feel like the company actually cares about their personal growth, they will also go above and beyond to try to achieve the company's goal. This is exactly what alignment feels like. And an engaged organization basically holds the glue of a properly aligned company strategy, right? But it doesn't stop there. Coaches work all year long to make sure that their teams win. Similarly, even HR and business leaders have to work all year long to make sure that their organization's success is not just a one time initiative, but something that keeps increasing on a consistent manner. So, how do they do that? First, they gauge the pulse of the organization. Before any kind of major initiative is taken place inside the organization, they need to know exactly where all the employees stand, right? So to start with, they can send out surveys, they can gather feedback, they can run regular check-ins with the employees and understand how aligned they feel with the company's goals. Are they getting enough resources? Are they getting enough feedback? Do they feel like their particular skill set is aligned with their job role? These are really important factors that have to be measured. And after gathering these insights, you can make use of really revolutionizing technology for that as well. You don't have to go and take feedback individually from particular people or run surveys that much. Now with AI, you have the capability to gather bulk feedback, to analyze trends, to find out sentiments, and to understand the exact themes that are occurring within your organization and take action in bulk by strategically deciding what to do. And that strategy is what will help you plan a continuous regime. Now, when I say a continuous regime, it has to be a systematic approach of how you're going to handle uh, the engagement within your organization, right? So, for example, you need to understand exactly what resources your employees need, what tools they need, how can you help them to improve the skills that they currently have. And all of these will be part of your continuous regime. And while this is happening, you need to make sure that every employee also feels motivated to keep contributing towards their goals. Maintaining morale is really important, and that happens when the organization's leaders keep celebrating every milestone they reach. Now take the example that we were talking about. You're launching a product. How many steps go into that process, right? You're going to have designs, a million iterations of those designs. But when it finally gets approved, it is a milestone, right? When the sales team finally closes the first deal, that is also a milestone. These are things that create momentum within the organization. And these are causes of celebration. Now, if these milestones were ignored by leadership teams, it might cause demotivation. It might even make the employees feel like, huh, I've done so much, but my contribution is not completely being valued. So this is a sentiment that we need to avoid. And as much as possible, we need to keep making sure that the employees feel motivated. And fourth and final step. Now, even within product teams, when they are working on their feature roadmap, they will compare it with other competitors to understand what kind of strategic items they should be working on that will help them gain more revenue, right? Similarly, HR and business leaders can also compare their own internal practices that you are running for maintaining or even improving engagement with other industry practices amongst your competitor companies as well. So when you keep a track of all the strategic practices that are happening outside, you will also understand what kind of measurable outcomes are coming out of that you can clearly see in their business model, and maybe even take a few steps to do that in your own organization. So this is how we can talk about engagement on an organizational level. Now, I know that we've said a lot about how engagement is going to impact your business profitability. And you might even get the question of causation versus correlation here. And to clear that up, we would like to go right into the next set of segment that we have here, which is to talk about the real cost of disengagement. So, what exactly is happening in your organization and how exactly is it going to affect your business outcomes? According to Gallup's 2024 data, we have found that disengagement in an organization leads to 18% less productivity. Now, this is because disengaged employees often lack the motivation to take the initiative and perform at their best, and it directly affects team outcomes as well. Not just that, it also leads to 81% more absenteeism within the organization. This especially would lead to a lack of commitment. And if at all there is a lot of cross collaboration happening within your organization, it might even disrupt the workflows and the team dynamics that exist within your organization. So if one team doesn't do their work, the next team that's supposed to carry forward will probably not be able to do that. And thirdly, you see a 41% decline in work quality. This is because when disengaged employees are less attentive to their tasks, maybe their quality might fall short. Maybe they might end up making more errors in their work, and that might even result in lower standards of performance. Now, these are really staggering numbers and huge red flags. Say, for example, your car broke down. Okay, you're calling the service center, and somebody just picks up the phone and answers in a very unenthusiastic way, like, oh, yeah, it's going to take 3 years for me to come and pick it up. How are you going to feel as a customer? Because that is a really bad experience, right? Which brings us to the next point. This is the effect of disengagement. Disengaged employees directly translate to about 10% loss in customer satisfaction. That's because unhappy employees within an organization will most likely provide a subpar service, and this will reflect on how your clients are viewing you as a company and your brand as well. So, this is a really big reason to be worried, because this directly also measures to 23% decline in business profitability according to Gallup. Now, not only does this impact revenue, it also impacts the long-term sustainability of your organization. Now, why should you be worried, right? If you actually look at the 2025 stats by Gallup, globally, we've seen about $9.6 trillion in revenue as a global loss just because of disengagement. And that is a huge number. This calculation can also be set up for your own organization. You can see the rate of disengagement within your organization and measure exactly how much money goes into that and what you're probably losing if you're not going to pay attention to how your employees feel. But let's not forget all this talk about revenue. We also have additional costs that come up here. Disengaged employees are 43% more likely to leave the organization. And we also know that the cost of replacing an employee is almost 2 times the cost of retaining one. So when we add all of these up, we are facing major losses just because of not maintaining employee engagement within our company. So at this point,
Honestly, Sanya, hearing all these costs of disengagement feels a little overwhelming. So, what do you think? What are the reasons why people quietly check out?
Good question, Tasneem. So we've done an analysis with our customers from ThriveSparrow over the last 1 year. We've had several conversations with them, and we've identified a few key trends in global teams, right? Across the globe, we've had several customers that have reported the same issues. And to start with, the first and foremost that we found in almost 83% of the companies that we spoke to was the action imperative. Now, you may have heard of the term survey fatigue. This is when employees are constantly being asked questions, they're giving feedback, they're running all these pulse surveys, they're constantly voicing out their concerns, but nothing is happening. The organization is not actually taking any action based on that feedback. This itself, while is reducing the trust of the employee on the company, they also end up feeling like their voices don't matter and the company doesn't take them seriously. So in this case, a lot of times, the fact that action is not being taken itself is becoming a cause of disengagement, apart from all the reasons why they were already disengaged. So, this is a huge factor why uh, we find that taking action has to be one of the key imperative uh, things from the leadership side to go forward and create an environment of engagement. At this point, I would really like to invite Dahlia to give her insights on what she has seen from across her experience in different industries around this.
Yes, Sanya, you're right. So first of all, most leaders, I would say all leaders who want to do, who wants to take, all leaders who take voices of, their employees through surveys or focus groups, or interviews, they come with good intentions when they launch the engagement surveys or the engagement program. They want to hear from their people, they genuinely want to make things better. But here's where it breaks down when priorities shift. So business pressure, search, engagement initiatives quietly move to the back burner. I've seen this pattern across industries and geographies. Nothing disengage employees faster than asking for their opinion and then doing absolutely nothing with it. I've seen it firsthand across industries. Companies run flashy engagement surveys, they created fancy dashboards, and then leadership moves on to the next crisis. Now, in McKinsey's 2024 Global Workforce Report, 67% of employees said their feedback disappeared into a black hole. When that happens, it teaches people that their voice does not matter. Accountability isn't a nice to have when you run engagement programs, employee engagement programs. It's a leadership non negotiable. If you collect feedback, you own it. Publicly, transparently, you act on it. Otherwise, I would say you don't even bother asking your employees because inaction creates a credibility gap. And once employees lose trust, it's almost impossible to win it back. I've heard so many when I go into focus group sessions where employees like, so what are you going to do with this? Oh, they got so discouraged because they're like, oh, Dahlia, I'm telling you, before you come in as a consultant, we've been doing this for 2, 3 years and we see nothing happen. So part of the failure is systemic. Managers are rarely taught why engagement truly matters beyond a scorecard. When you do the engagement survey, managers got their scorecard. They don't know what to do with them. They're not trained to frame engagement as a shared responsibility, not a complaint box exercise. So employees need to understand it's the leadership's role to set the tone and priorities. It's HR's role to build the infrastructure and coach the system. It's the manager's role to create the everyday culture. And it's every employee's role to show up critically, constructively, and solution focused. Where I've seen success, organizations didn't just roll out a survey. They built a strong, deliberate plan, embedded clear communication at every single step, and mobilized engagement champions across departments. And crucially, they closed the loop by sharing action plan results publicly, connecting the dots between feedback, action, happier teams, and better business performance. But here's the next level, and it's critical today. Action plans and strategies can't just be one-time fixes anymore. They have to be sustainable systems. Many managers admit they struggle to find the time, not just to think about engagement strategies, but to develop and drive action plans that stick. But the deeper reality is that managers are not trained psychologists. They aren't taught to understand human behavior, motivation, emotional states, or the deeper drivers of engagement. They are often promoted based on technical skill or not their ability to manage the human experience of work. So you need to build engagement models that create ongoing momentum, a cultural flywheel that keeps turning no matter what crisis hits, what leader changes, or what economic cycle we're in. So without practical models, communication frameworks, and tools to guide them, especially the managers, and expecting them to naturally create high engagement is unrealistic. Building that toolkit for managers isn't a luxury anymore, it's a strategic necessity. So, what works is developing simple, usable models along with powerful communications tools that help managers have their right conversations, interpret emotional signals accurately, and proactively support their team's engagement and well-being. And so today, whether they are startups or global enterprises, companies can and should leverage their robust communication channels to engage managers and employees creatively, consistently, and meaningfully. That's my input, Sanya. Thank you.
Moving to the next point that we found from an analysis, growth stagnation. Now, this is particularly interesting, especially for our current generation. If you were to ask the Gen Z workforce right now the question whether they would go for a really high-paying job with very little growth opportunities, very little learning opportunities, versus a job where they have an amazing learning curve, but probably less pay. 76%, according to LinkedIn's report, state that they would choose the latter. This is because our current generation really values how much they are learning on the job, because they understand that their skill set is what they are getting paid for. And when their skill set enhances with their career, that's how they're going to keep growing, not just professionally, but as personally as well. So without these opportunities being presented for them by the company, they feel like they might become stagnant. And this would really reduce their motivation and their engagement levels. And even within the ThriveSparrow customer database, we found 77% of companies to be talking about this. Dahlia, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, Sanya, I hate feeling stagnant. I hate feeling stagnant in my life, and not just at workplace, right? Because naturally we all want to feel that we grow and we evolve as human. But here's the hard truth. Most organizations today are not structured for real growth anymore. Development today isn't about taking off another mandatory course or sending people to a conference once a year. It's about building a living system where people feel challenged. That's growth, feeling challenged, capable, and constantly advancing. So McKinsey's 2024 survey confirmed what I've seen on the ground. 41% of employees who left their jobs last year said lack of growth was their top reason. Now, I've personally sat across from employees who said, I gave everything, but nobody ever talked to me about what's next. So employees want the care from the organization about their progression, about their development, their growth. When that happens, it's not just career disappointment. It hits at the core of human needs because at our most basic psychological level, humans need to feel We need to feel competent, mastering new skills, capable, achieving meaningful milestones, smart, expanding mental models, challenged and victorious, overcoming obstacles and growing confidence through it. So without those experiences, people disengage. Not because they're lazy, not because they're becoming incompetent, but because they feel stuck, they feel unseen and unvalued, and hence disengagement.
That was a great insight, Dahlia. Next, we found lack of recognition to be one of the major drivers of disengagement. Now, 56% companies spoke about this, but it's not as simple as it looks. The employees that we got feedback from tend to have two facets to which they were addressing recognition. One is the adequacy of recognition itself. They feel like they've been contributing a lot, but the recognition that they're getting in return for it is not really up to the same mark. That's one facet. Another facet that we saw was the fairness of the feedback mechanisms that existed inside the organization itself. And when I talk about feedback mechanisms, what I'm really trying to come around is performance evaluations and how they take place. A lot of employees felt like the feedback and the evaluation of their work was not always consistent or objective, because of which they were not being recognized enough for the work that they actually put in. So when this happens, they tend to get demotivated. When you lose morale in such a way, it's really hard to keep staying in a place where you feel undervalued. Now, I know this is a very common issue that we've seen across multiple industries as well. Please let me know your thoughts, Talia.
Yes, recognition, the culture shaper. Recognition isn't a bonus, it's basic human wiring. You want to feel appreciated, and I want to feel appreciated. From factories to fintech startups, the most common thing I hear from disengaged employees is nobody notices what I do. I am frustrated. I keep feeling underappreciated. And the worst is when I've done something, but my superior, my manager, or the boss takes the credit for my hard work. Now, psychologists like Maslow and Herzberg taught us decades ago esteem needs, right? Feeling valued, seen, respected are central to motivation. Yet, global Gallup data shows recognition remains one of the lowest rated experiences inside companies. Let me be clear, recognition is not hitting a KPI and getting a good job email. Recognition is specific, timely, human acknowledgement of effort, contribution, creativity, teamwork, the things that aren't always measured in the dashboards. Highly engaged teams I've worked with have real recognition cultures. They call out great work in the moment. They are constructive, not fake or fluffy. They celebrate each other publicly and privately. Recognition builds the social fabric of a team. Without it, you get silent resentment and what you call the quiet quitting.
Hmm. Now, this is a tricky one. We found unequal pay or even matters related to compensation to be quite a driver of disengagement as well. Now, when we talk about compensation and benefits, it's not just about low pay or even satisfaction with the compensation level, right? It's about what you consider to be a fair compensation to you. So, in a lot of the feedback that we've received, frustration really grows when the employee feels like they have been reaching the industry standard when they are talking about their own role. I am doing everything that I can do. But when compared to other organizations, if they are getting paid less, this is a kind of industry parity that they are viewing, and it really kind of makes them feel like maybe the company doesn't value them enough and maybe they can find other opportunities outwards. And this is one of the top reasons why top talent of companies start looking elsewhere as well.
Yes, Sanya. Unequal pay and broken performance management. Nothing destroys engagement faster than the discovery that your work isn't valued fairly. I've seen it repeatedly. Two employees side by side doing the same job, one quietly discovers they're paid 15% less. Or worse, top performers find out mediocre ones are earning more because they get along better with the boss. So McKinsey data shows 58% of global employees feel their compensation is unfair. The real problem? Weak, inconsistent, biased performance management systems. Managers are often undertrained, uncomfortable giving feedback, and biased in evaluations, with performance. HR processes are sometimes opaque or purely communicated. So when performance management lacks rigor, fairness collapses, and so does trust. If you want engagement, you need metrics that are objective, transparent, and applied equally by the managers, the fair judgment of the managers and measurement of the performance. Otherwise, you're just running a popularity contest and your best people will leave. So let's look at the next one we have here, Sanya.
Change without clarity breaks trust. Now, this just doesn't speak about change management only. This also really talks about the crux of the matter, which is communication, right? When the communication links within the organization are disconnected, employees will not get the clear context of what's actually happening. Now, especially during a time of a big transition. Say, for example, in your organization, the CEO has been changed. Now, during this kind of a transition, it's the leadership's responsibility to let all of the employees know exactly what's going to happen next. Because without that, every single person is going to question the future of the company and therefore question the future of their own placement towards the company's success, right? So if this has not been communicated clearly, if they don't have enough context on what's going to happen next, they will feel disconnected. They will lose trust from the leadership teams and they will start planning for other opportunities elsewhere. So this is something that really needs to be maintained across different teams on all levels.
Yeah, communication breakdown during the rapid change. Change is uncomfortable. That's human. Psychology research tells us that change triggers the fight or flight responses in the brain, the same as physical threats. But what amplifies the fear isn't the change itself, it's the lack of communication about it. I've seen leadership teams withhold information, thinking they're protecting employees. They're not. They're fueling rumor mills and paranoia. When communication breaks down, especially during rapid pivots, employees don't know where they stand. So engagement plummets because they feel uncertain, they feel insecure, what's going to happen? And so that's when they start to feel the disconnect. Their emotional and psychological engagement, there's disconnect. And so you get the result of disengagement from that is people are walking on eggshells, people are doubtful, just trust breaks, right? So McKinsey research shows poor communication during change can drop engagement by over 40%. Employees need to hear it early, they need to hear it consistently, and they need to hear it in a way that is congruent with what they see and experience every day. Silence is not protection, it's betrayal. Clear, frequent, honest communication is the only antidote to fear in times of change. Let's look at the leadership effectiveness next, Sanya.
Good. So again, this is one of those topics which you will find being repeated across every single organization. So when we talk about leadership effectiveness on its whole, the feedback that we receive from employees are across multiple dimensions. So the way that employees perceive leadership itself is something that we can talk about in length. But one of the few factors that really stand out in their perspective is integrity. When the leadership team communicates something, they need to follow up on it. They need to follow through on what they've committed, because that is what ultimately builds the trust within the organization. When the integrity of the leadership team is solid, employees are very willing to listen to them. Their words will inspire and motivate the employees to actually go towards the vision that they set, to go towards the company goals that they are placing. And without this trust, all the employees will start questioning the competence of the leadership teams and even question the decisions that are being taken place. Now, this is something that is key to the entire structural unity of the organization. So when leadership team maintains that integrity and maintains the competence of their decision making skills and the timeliness with which they adhere to all of their commitments, the organization will keep thriving.
Yes, Sania. Leadership effectiveness is the core of my work since I started working at Gallup in 2010 in management consulting. Every time we see there's a gap in the leadership effectiveness, when we talk about, the correlation to disengagement at work. So leadership today is brutally different from what it was even like 10 years ago. It's no longer enough to manage tasks or control outputs. Like real leaders are coaches, it's expected now in organizations. That people managers or eight can coach. You can also act as a coach, not just a boss in managing tasks and delegating tasks. You're required to be coaches, strategies for the business, empathizers, and relentless drivers of accountability, often across Zoom screens, cultures, and time zones, because now we have very diverse and multinational organizations across the world. We're working remotely a lot these days too. So the best teams today, as McKinsey's 2024 study shows, are led by people who are both deeply demanding and deeply caring. I've seen leaders who believe a weekly team call and a few cheerful emails are enough. It's not. Surface level leadership doesn't build trust, loyalty, or results. Real leadership today means building trust across distances, setting high standards without micromanaging, caring about people's mental health and growth, not just their output, communicating, coaching, and caring consistently, authentically, and relentlessly. Now, if you step into leadership, you are stepping into a role model contract. You're not there to perform leadership, you're there to live it. Authentic leaders don't spin empty visions. They connect the vision to real people, real roles, and real contributions. They tell the truth. They explain not just what is happening, but why, the purpose, and they don't hide the challenges. Surface leaders try to build perception. Real leaders build belief. Surface leaders create toxic positivity. Real leaders create hope grounded in reality. Surface leaders speak in slogans. Real leaders align every word with their actions. Employees today are sharper than ever. They can smell the difference. In today's world, leadership is not about being impressive, it's about being congruent, courageous, and clear. Anything less, you lose your people before you even know it.
That was incredibly insightful, Dahlia.
Yeah, like that was really insightful awareness on the key drivers of disengagement. Now we're curious to hear from the audience as well. Let me quickly launch the poll. So, which disengagement driver do you all think is the most overlooked one in majority of the companies? Give me a minute, I'll just launch the poll. Yeah, let us hear from the audience as well.
So here are the options: lack of growth opportunities, poor communication, recognition and fairness gaps, and leadership gaps. What do you
Let's
think?
give it a few more minutes and let's see where everyone's leaning towards. All right, then let's end the poll. I'll share the results for you guys.
Recognition. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'm sure some of the leaders here are feeling the same about recognition for your own self. Yeah. All right. The disengagement traps here continues with how do we make sure employees are engaged? So how do we make sure employees are engaged? Some strategies I will be sharing with you. First of all is know what your people really need. So I would say, it's good to open the HR textbook or read articles on Forbes or Harvard Business, or McKinsey and Gallup Steel. What your employees really need, what your people really need, you need to learn from them, not the textbooks, not the articles. All these datas are the data that you see from McKinsey, Gallup, or anywhere. They are, some results and insights what most organizations are going through. But when you're trying to tailor your specific strategies for your people, it is really important to get their voice. So yes, I really strongly encourage that you run the pulse survey. It doesn't have to be long questionnaire. I think with ThriveSparrow's tools, you get a selection of questions, a list of questions. You want to consult the ThriveSparrow consultants on what are the questions that you can measure and ask your employees to get their voice. And also a deep understanding of the current state just by observing the people, the environment, the performance. You also know kind of can have shape the hypotheses for what you want to measure, what you want to ask in your surveys, your engagement surveys or the pulse surveys, or even your focus group sessions with your team. So get to know what they really need. And then always, first of all, and this is basic, is, provide them with the basic needs, right? So you don't have to ask, especially now we're working digitally, remotely, hybrid, globally distributed workplaces. The very first foundation for engagement is simple but often overlooked. Equip people with what they need to be productive. Before we talk about motivation, loyalty, or discretionary effort, employees need to feel confident that they have the tools, the resources, the systems, and human support to actually do their jobs. If that foundation is shaky, no amount of culture building or engagement initiatives will stick. So what does this look like in real terms? It means providing reliable, fast tech infrastructure, laptops, stable VPN access. I'm with 34 Strong. I'm a consultant at 34 Strong right now. Just the first week before I started my work, I'm working 100% remote. First week before I started my first day at work, I received my laptop. I received the internet payment, so I can fix a strong internet. The Wi-Fi. I receive all the swags as well from the organization, right? And so I can take that 1 week to really have myself set up, so I can start my job in 1 week. So that's very important. Some people need dual monitors if they're doing data crunching. Good headsets are important if you're doing a lot of client meetings and say webinar, for example. Mobile friendly apps. And then user-friendly systems for the everyday tasks, seamless platforms for expense reporting, HR benefits access, time off requests, travel booking, or IT support. Clear points of contact. So employees know exactly where to go and who to reach out to when they have questions, whether it's HR payroll, IT help desk, or operations support. Usually, these are already provided during the onboarding, right? When you're onboarding new hires, they get all this information, the points of contact in the organization. Well integrated collaboration tools like the Slack, the Microsoft Teams, Asana, or Trello, so employees can easily communicate, align, and move work forward without endless friction. Training and onboarding support, not just here's your login, but real guidance on how to use the systems that support their day-to-day work life. That's the basic needs. When these basic needs are missing, frustration builds quickly. People waste time navigating clunky systems. They feel isolated, unsupported, and overwhelmed. Engagement drops not because people don't care, but because the environment signals that their success wasn't really planned for. I'm not put up for success. I'm not, no, you're not helping me to set me up for success. Now, on the flip side, when companies invest in providing a strong operational foundation, even for fully remote teams, employees feel respected, empowered, and set up to win. They spend less time fighting systems and more time creating value. In a remote first world, basic enablement is the new first rule of engagement. You can't expect people to give you their best work if you don't first give them the best tools, systems, and access to support. Now, moving on to the next one, focusing on and prioritizing personal growth. Where do you come in as managers and as an organization to help with the personal growth of individual employees? Now, investing in employee growth in a fast-paced world, because the world evolves so quickly and because information, learning, and opportunity are now more accessible than ever. Employees today want to achieve success faster, and they want to learn smarter, deeper, and more targeted to their specific areas of expertise. The hunger for fast, focused development is real. Without consistent challenges, meaningful upskilling, and visible progress, even the most motivated employees start to feel bored, stagnant, and disconnected and quickly disengage. In today's talent market, that disengagement doesn't linger. It triggers action. Employees start looking elsewhere, often quietly, for new ways to feed their personal and professional growth ambitions. Organizations that want to thrive must meet this need head on. But, and it's important to be honest, no organization can give everyone everything they want. There are boundaries, there are budgets, there are operational realities. However, the best organizations understand a deeper truth. It's not about fulfilling every individual wish. It's about building a living, breathing growth culture where employees are encouraged, enabled, and empowered to grow both inside and beyond the organization. Here's how successful organizations and managers are doing it. Create clear ongoing growth conversations. Managers must regularly, not just annually, discuss career goals, skills needed, and learning plans. Growth must be a living conversation. Offer flexible, targeted learning options. Give employees access to certifications, project-based assignments, mentorships, and stretch opportunities aligned to their specific fields and aspirations, not just generic learning modules. Support self-investment. Encourage employees to invest in their own learning journeys, share scholarships, recommend external programs, celebrate self-driven initiatives. Growth should be a shared responsibility, and you can only do this when you have your one-on-ones with them. Expand growth beyond technical skills. Help employees develop in broader areas like personal finance, resilience, and well being, areas that strengthen them both personally and professionally. Celebrate visible micro progress. Growth isn't just titles or promotions. Recognize skill mastery, leadership behaviors, knowledge sharing, and risk taking. Small wins fuel long term momentum. So, growth today isn't optional, it's the oxygen that keeps engagement alive. Now we'll move on to the next one, which is the sense of belonging. So, creating a workplace where people feel they truly belong, a place that's healthy, not toxic, just like a good home. Because at the end of the day, we spend nearly a third of our lives at work. Our workplace should be a space where we thrive, not just survive. Now, why a healthy workplace matters. A healthy workplace is much like a healthy home. It's not just about having good furniture or fancy perks. It's about the relationships, the trust, the sense of security we feel when we walk through the door. In a healthy home, we feel heard, valued, safe, and supported. The same should be true at work. In contrast, toxic workplaces like toxic homes drain energy, crush creativity, and cause people to disengage or leave. Research shows that when people feel a genuine sense of belonging and psychological safety at work, they're more innovative, more committed, and more productive. So what does psychological safety looks like? Psychological safety means that everyone feels safe to speak up with ideas, but they also feel safe to admit their mistakes. Speak up questions, questions or challenge. People can question or challenge any ideas or with their own opinion without fear of humiliation or punishment. Admit mistakes, or even ask for help. People feel safe to be authentic, showing up as who they are without masking their identity. It's about building a culture where vulnerability is seen as strength, not weakness. All right, so some strategies is model respect and empathy every day. So listen actively, leaders, create clear, open communication channels, right? Regular check-ins. Some managers have this open door policy. You can walk in my door anytime, and don't feel like we have some barrier between us. Address toxicity immediately. Do not tolerate or enable bullying, gossip, exclusion, or disrespect at work. Racism, it happens too. Protecting your people is protecting your culture. So in a healthy home, if something's broken, you fix it. You don't let it fester. All right, next one is individual contribution. Best practices from highly engaged companies for maximizing talent and contribution. The highest performing companies today don't just hire smart people. They know how to maximize their talents, their strengths, and their impact. They understand that true engagement is not about perks or bonuses. It's about creating an environment where every individual can contribute at their highest level and feel seen. They feel valued and proud of their contribution. Now, here are the proven strategies and best practices we see consistently in highly engaged companies and teams. Leverage individual strengths. High performing companies don't try to mold people into something they're not. Check out the book from Netflix, No Rules Rule. They empower their people. They hire and they empower their people to say, okay, you come with this experience, you come with this knowledge. Now we support you, speak up, share, and we want to give you that space, people to do their best work when they are playing in their zone of genius, not their zone of mediocrity. Promote deep self awareness. Highly engaged teams invest in helping individuals know themselves better, their strengths, weaknesses, values, and working styles. So you can do this with a very open, healthy, constructive feedback loop, not just manager to employee, but among employees as well. Assign the right work to the right person. So, managers, you deliberately match tasks and roles to people's capabilities and potential. When you put capable people in the right seats, performance accelerates and so does engagement. Build confidence through opportunities, not just feedback. So some companies, what they do very well is they stretch, they provide opportunities. That's how, to learn who wants that challenge, who wants to be stretched, and individually is again through that one-on-one conversations. Recognize effort, impact, and growth, not just the results. Create psychological safety for ideas and opinions. So respects that everyone's idea. Everyone has interesting ideas. They can voice out and they don't feel judged. Opinions and their feedback as well. Their contributions are not just tolerated; they are respected, considered seriously, and acted upon when appropriate. Communicate the connection between individual contribution and the business success. Employees must constantly hear, because of what you did, here's the result we achieved. Closing that loop builds pride, ownership, and deeper engagement over time. So if organizations want to maximize talent today, it starts with a mindset shift from controlling to empowering, from fitting people into boxes, into unlocking their best selves, from chasing short-term results to building sustainable, engaged, high-performing human ecosystems. All right, moving on to the next one. That's on individual contribution. The next slide, please, Saniya.
Thank you so much, Dahlia. So these were all the aspects from which you may have gotten a lot of information on how you can take best practices from the industry and apply it into your own organizations on how you can improve engagement within your own companies as well. Now, to sum it all up, we have a few pointers basically that we've prepared. Firstly, start from the top. If you've got one takeaway from this entire session, it's the fact that employee engagement is not just a one-time initiative. It's an entire workplace culture shift, and it has to start from the leadership teams. The crux of employee engagement is dependent on the kind of culture and the kind of tone that the leadership teams of the organization set, because it's the basis on which they communicate with other cross-functional teams. It's the basis on which the HR teams also create practices, culture codes, or even the basis on which other managers inside the company set the ground rules for interactions that happen within the organization. And all of that has to come from the leadership teams, because the manager reportee relationship is considered to be the biggest driver of employee engagement. Now, this is the main reason why leaders of the organization, including even the management teams on the middle level, are all really important pieces of this puzzle. That's because managers who foster good workplace relationships, the ones who keep regular check-ins, like Dalia mentioned, and keep checking up on their employees to understand exactly how they feel constantly and what they can do to improve their experience within the organization, to improve their work environment, and to enable them to actually reach their goals, is something that can only happen when the manager and the reportee have a very solid relationship, right? So how do they do that? By maintaining transparency. Throughout the employee life cycle, the manager has to be giving that relevant space to the employees, that they should be able to come out and voice their opinions, voice their concerns, talk to them about any kind of problem that they face within the organization. Am I getting enough resources? Do I need any additional tools to do my work? Do I need any kind of a course that helps me learn things that I need in order to achieve what is expected out of me? These are things that can only happen if the employee feels comfortable enough to raise those concerns with their managers. And that has to be maintained all throughout the employee's life cycle, right from when they join the company till they leave the company. There has to be transparent communication to understand why certain things are taking place, right? And when these employees voice their concerns, the primary and complicit responsibility that comes with leadership is to take action upon it. So this is something that has been repeated all throughout the course of this session, I'm sure, that taking action is the most imperative step of maintaining employee engagement. Whenever an employee comes out and tells you something of a concern, whenever it is validated and understood that this is something that really causes a problem within the organization, the only way that we can continue to keep building trust within the organization if the leaders of the organization, the HR and the business leaders, they take action upon it and they drive that kind of a workplace culture where transparency and feedback actually matters, you know. And this process has to be a continuous wave all throughout the year because and also this has to take place all throughout the company on every single level, not just from the leadership team's perspective, but even every single individual employee has to own it and maintain that kind of a culture within their interactions on the organization as well. Now, doing all this, we can't 100% say that you can achieve 100% engagement within your company, but it is imperative that we try because companies that try will get rewarded with employees that see the effort. This
Yeah. Go ahead, Sanya.
No, go ahead, Dahlia. I was going to
Yeah, I want to share Peter Drucker's quote, right? So Peter Drucker is the father of modern management, but to me, he's a philosopher of modern management. So he said the task of leadership is to make people cap capable of joint performance, to make their strengths effective and their weaknesses irrelevant. Now, engagement is not about policies. It's about unlocking human potential, making people feel seen, valued, challenged, and part of something that matters. In a world obsessed with speed, what employees crave hasn't changed, which is the meaning, the mastery, trust, and contribution. Now, great companies today like Netflix prove that engagement is not built by control or perks. It's built through high trust, high freedom, and high expectation. So all this that you just shared, Sanya, taking action and all that, that's all. First, the foundation is trust. When you check in, you want to build trust. When you maintain transparency, you also build trust. When you take action, the congruency, and you repeat, that maintains the trust. So great companies, they hire adults. They give context, not control. They reward courage, not compliance. They hold people accountable and they celebrate real ownership. So in today's world, real engagement means handing people the keys to their own success and expecting them to drive with excellence. Leadership's job is simple and hard. Create trust, set standards, inspire belief, then get out of the way. And when you do that, people won't just perform, they'll fly, they'll be happy, they'll thrive, and they'll stay. So that's my last comment to add on to your point, Sanya.
Thank you so much, Dahlia. That was really true. Okay, so I think at this point we're going to have to end the session. I hope you've all had a really good, informative time with us. But before we completely stop here, do you have any questions for us?
Yes, Sanya. So we have got a couple of questions.
So the first question we have here, you said that surveys can backfire if companies don't act on the feedback. Is that really true? Yes. Unfortunately, that is quite the trend that we have seen. Research from McKinsey really shows us that employees provide feedback, but if they don't see any follow-up actions actually taking place from it, they lose trust in their leadership. It drops by a 20 to 30% rate actually. And this results in even lower engagement than what they used to have, even before having conducted these surveys at all. Like Daria mentioned, in certain circumstances, it's even better not to take that step if you're not going to even follow up on it. So that's something that closing the feedback
And have
is
either.
essential.
Okay, now there is one more interesting question that we have. Either Dahlia or Sanya can answer it. I hope you guys can see the question.
Question, what are the most common mistakes, or is that true? Is that the question? Oh, I just answered one question, which is how do you reignite motivation in long tenured employees who've seen it all? So I would say, as we evolve, we have family and we have, some the younger ones, they are motivated by the money and the success, and they're building new families. Probably they're getting married or they want to travel the world, right? as long tenured, and maybe sometimes if they're in the public sector also, they see it all. It's almost like routine. They come to work 9 to 5, everything is the same. So the motivation is, if your manager, one way is to really have that one-on-one conversation with them and take interest in their personal goals. So sometimes they talk about their, if they're senior by age as well, they'll start talking about their children, they start talking about their grandchildren, or they start talking about retirement. So, but okay, so if you say long tenure, maybe in this today's world, 5 years is long, right? 5 or 10 years is long. So yeah, you want to see their interests. And sometimes you have committee teams of like culture committee teams, you have engagement initiatives. You can also involve them in other programs and initiatives in the organizations creatively. So yeah, but first have that one-on-one conversations and open those opportunities to them, not just a team of new young people, build this culture committee and initiatives and program. No, integrate with the seniors as well, and involve them. So I think that generation gap and integration also will be very helpful. I hope I answered the question. We have a next one here. What are the most common mistakes organizations make when trying to improve engagement, and how can they avoid them? Yeah, the most common mistakes is you make the scorecard, the manager's scorecard, like a report card. So it's on the manager and it's your fault if your scores are bad. So managers feel like it's really a test of, their effectiveness in managing their teams, or how much their teams like or do not like them. So you want to avoid managers feeling that, hey, this is your scorecard. More so, that's why I said earlier, it's the education to the managers and the employees, their roles in engagement of the organization, not just it's on the manager. So that's one common mistake I see, that that to improve engagement, you impose on the managers that, oh, your score move up by 0.2, from a 3.2 out of 5 to or maybe to a 4. So now everyone is pressured by the score and they focus on the score. And I have seen when managers go to their team members, when the survey gets launched again, they say, hey, you better give me a high 5 score, okay? Otherwise, we'll have all to write this action plan. So there's no, sense of accountability to engagement and driving engagement when you do that. So that's one common mistake I see. Anything you want to add on to, Saniya?
Another common mistake, like you mentioned, is chasing the wrong metrics. A lot of times we see that people often end up going after just survey participation rates and calling it a day. Now, although it's a good metric to keep track of, it helps you understand whether or not your employees are even willing to give you feedback. It's not the end goal, right? The actual outcomes of engagement are directly affecting your productivity, your profitability, and even attrition rates. These are things that get impacted when your engagement takes a dip. So that's the kind of stuff that you need to monitor more. So that is something that we could probably also focus on.
Yeah, and asking the right questions too, right? Sometimes you ask questions that are leading, or that I have no, it's like I just have to answer a yes to you. It's almost like the question makes me answer yes to this, but my answer is actually no, right? So really consulting experts on, what's the best, how questions are framed, and when you ask them, it's really important. Otherwise, in data, we say garbage in, garbage out, right? You get the wrong information, and then when you analyze, you're like, this is not really what we're looking for. So yeah.
So another question we have here is, what role does middle management play in either fueling or fixing disengagement? Which is a very interesting question, because if you see, your middle managers are actually the people that your employees are going to interact with on a daily basis. So they play a very key role in maintaining the culture inside the organization. Now, every single IC is not going to interact with the CEO or is not going to interact with the stakeholders on a daily basis. They'll probably just have a few reviews once in a while. And so even when a strategy is being defined on top, it has to be translated properly across every single level. And that responsibility falls on the middle management. So this really can either fuel or fix disengagement, because depending on how they handle it, things can go right or things can go wrong. Now, if the middle managers really understand how the strategies are placed, and if they are also maintaining the kind of culture that they want to promote within the organization, if they are recognizing their team members properly, if they are communicating well, if they are basically creating that kind of a safe environment for the employees to go around and give feedback and to be encouraged to take up tasks beyond their capabilities and to, completely basically the middle managers are the ones that coach the employees. They don't just supervise their day-to-day tasks. So when this happens, the basic interaction between the employee and their managers will set the tone or set the basis on which the employee views the entire organization itself. Because if your team is really good, you will want to be there. If your manager is supportive of you, it's automatically going to drive your motivation to do more to contribute towards the team outcomes, which ultimately will also contribute towards the company's outcomes as well. So that is something that can fuel or fix disengagement as well. Any thoughts on that, Dahlia?
Yes, I think, middle managers, if you have your direct reports who are team leads or supervisors who are also people managers, your role is to empower and give the autonomy to encourage, communicate, and educate the people, your team leads, the people managers, your direct reports. What is engagement? So again, communication, again, cascading from HR, from the top leaders about engagement, and aligning that to the vision for the organization, right? What does the health of the organization, like define the health of organization, define what is engagement. So middle managers can support their direct reports who are people managers with encouragement, coaching, mentorship around how to manage trouble employees. Sometimes they need to have tough conversations with employees. They get attacked personally by the employees. So middle managers can come in and support them with that. But if they are already thriving, then middle managers want to come in and acknowledge the high performing engaged teams, participate team building sessions sometimes, or just in your all managers all hands session. You want to again, back to recognition and appreciate your team leads maintaining high performance and high engagement. So giving the support, I know you have, there's a control, right? There's within your control and influence as middle managers. What are within your control? Do you have the budget to go and organize team building sessions? Can you ask for these for your team from the leaders, from the top, or from the management team? If you can, you ask for it. Everybody wants two monitors because they need to look at data, so they need two monitors. That will help them with the tools. So can the middle manager go into IT and request bulk of monitors for the entire team? So where the middle manager, where is what is your sphere of control and your sphere of influence, and you want to maximize where you can to support your team.
So, one more question we have here, and I think this is the last one, right, Tasneem? Okay. How can HR leaders manage a line manager who undertakes performance evaluations unfairly and puts him on performance improvement plans with aim to dismiss? Can HR managers drive engagement when facing constructive dismissal? Okay. There are several aspects to this question, right? First of all, what we're talking about is a possible risk towards company culture itself, right? This is kind of attacking the ethical backbone of the organization, you can say, because it's misusing the performance evaluations to push somebody out of the organization. So not only is this going to affect the company culture, it might even affect how safe employees feel within the organization. And you might even have legal implications of this, because if the employees try to sue you in return, this is kind of problematic for you. So in such situations, what an HR leader could do is, first of all, try to identify if this is a pattern that's recurring within teams, right? And if that is the case, they can audit the performance process that's happening within the organization. They can review exactly how the employees' evaluations align with the documented goals that they find, uh, alongside previous feedback, or even peer-to-peer feedback that they receive from other leaders within the organization as well. And interventions have to be taken proactively as well. So they could basically initiate conversations that help other team members to also give feedback on the person in question who is being dismissed, right? So when these kind of activities are facilitated, the HR will be having an proper ground to take a stance on this. And obviously, it's a case-to-case basis that you have to address it on, but that's something that can be taken into account.
I think with this we can end the session. Thank you so much, Dahlia and Saniya, for everything you shared with us today. And thank you all for joining with us here today. And as promised, as a bonus for attending, you all will be receiving 2 months of free access to ThriveSparrow's exclusive AI-powered engagement features. We can't wait to see what you all build from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dahlia, for joining. It was a wonderful
Thank you,
session.
Sanya.